She signed the papers on a Tuesday, and no one even offered her a glass of water. The conference room on the 14th floor of Harmon and Bell Associates smelled like leather and cold coffee. Vivian Caldwell sat across from her husband's 3 attorneys, 3 of them, because apparently one wasn't enough, and pressed her pen to the signature line with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. Her other hand rested flat against her belly. 6 months along. Enormous. She hadn't slept properly in 11 weeks. "Take your time," said the youngest attorney, a man in a gray suit who didn't mean it. She didn't take her time. She signed. Outside, the Chicago wind hit her like a slap. She stood on the sidewalk in front of the building, holding the copy of the agreement they'd handed her in a manila envelope, and she thought, this is it. This is what 3 years becomes, she didn't cry then. She cried later, on the bathroom floor of the apartment she'd had to move back into, the same one she'd lived in before she ever met Donovan Reed. Back when she was 31 and just starting out at the architecture firm. Back when she still believed love was something that happened and then simply stayed. She sat on the cold tile, one hand on her belly, and let it come. All of it. The whole enormous wave of it. Then she stood up, washed her face, and started making a list. She had met Donovan Reed at a fundraiser for the Chicago Symphony. He was 42, handsome in that specific way money sharpens a man, clean jaw, expensive watch, practiced posture. He laughed at her joke about the string quartet playing too slowly, and by the end of the evening he had her number, and she had the beginning of something she didn't yet know to be afraid of. They married 18 months later at a vineyard in Napa. Her mother cried. His mother didn't come. At the time, Vivian thought that was just a family quirk, some coldness that ran in the Reed blood. She understood later that his mother knew something she didn't. The first 2 years were fine. More than fine, sometimes. Donovan was generous when he was present, which wasn't always, but was often enough. He took her to Florence for her birthday. He remembered the name of a book she'd mentioned once, in passing. He held her hand at her father's funeral without her having to ask. But there were other things too. The way he went quiet whenever she talked about her work. The way he stopped asking about it altogether. The weekends that stretched into silence she couldn't quite read. The business trips that kept growing longer. And the night she came home early from a client dinner and found perfume on the bathroom counter that wasn't hers, a second wineglass on the kitchen table, rimmed with a lipstick shade she'd never owned. She asked him directly. He denied it directly. She believed him, which was the part she could never quite forgive herself for. Not the staying. The believing. She found out the truth 3 months into her pregnancy. Not from him, from a photograph, posted publicly, on the Instagram of a 27-year-old personal trainer in Los Angeles named Celeste Vane, captioned over a picture of herself in Donovan's Malibu house with a small red heart, "Home is where the heart is." Vivian sat with the phone in her hands for a very long time. Then she called a divorce attorney. The attorney she could afford, not the good kind, told her Donovan's team had already prepared a settlement. He walked her through it with the practiced calm of a man describing the weather. There was a number. There was an NDA. The NDA said she couldn't discuss the marriage, the circumstances of the divorce, or anything about Donovan Reed's personal life, publicly or privately, for 12 years. 12 years, she said. It's not uncommon, her attorney said. The settlement number wasn't small, by most people's standards. But she was 6 months pregnant with twins. She had no health insurance beyond what Donovan's plan had been covering. And his team had carefully structured the whole thing around a single lump sum, one clean payment, no ongoing obligation, nothing that so much as acknowledged the children. In the agreement, they were listed only as issue of the marriage, subject to future custody determination. Not people. Not her daughters. What does that mean? She asked. It means custody is a separate conversation, her attorney said. One he can initiate later. Later, meaning whenever it suited him. She signed the NDA. She signed the settlement. She sat in that cold conference room and signed because she was 20 weeks from her due date, because she had $11,000 in her own account, because her health insurance ran out at the end of the month, and because she had no way to fight 3 attorneys billing $900 an hour. She signed, then walked out into the cold and stood on the sidewalk, and she thought, I will remember every single thing about this day. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Donovan Reed announced his engagement to Celeste Vane. It ran in the Chicago Tribune's Society section, alongside a photo of the two of them at a rooftop dinner, her hand extended, the ring enormous, both of them laughing at something the camera hadn't caught. Vivian saw it on her phone at 6 in the morning, eating cereal alone at her kitchen table, 6.5 months pregnant. She set the phone face down. She finished her cereal. The girls were born on a Thursday in February, during a snowstorm that shut down 2 expressways and delayed the anesthesiologist by 40 minutes. Her mother was there. Her college roommate, Danny, drove in from Evanston and held one of her hands while her mother held the other. At 11:47 p.m., and again at 12:03 a.m., Vivian heard the particular sound of a newborn finding its voice for the very first time. She named them Hazel and Iris. She cried then too, not the ugly, bathroom floor crying, but something else entirely. Something that came from somewhere deeper than grief. The hospital stay ran 3 days. The bill, even with the insurance she'd scraped together as a freelance writer, was substantial. She paid what she could and set up a plan for the rest. Donovan, informed of the birth through his attorney, sent a brief acknowledgement. No visit. No call. Just the acknowledgement. She brought the girls home on a Sunday. The apartment had 2 rooms. She'd bought a second-hand double crib off Facebook Marketplace, and her mother had assembled it wrong, then right again, over the course of an afternoon. A noise machine sat on the dresser. Diapers were stacked on the closet shelf. A hospital photo of the girls hung pinned by the window. Standing in the doorway those first few nights, watching them sleep, she told herself, you're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. You don't have to know how, right now, she wasn't sure she believed it. But she kept saying it anyway. She met Nathan Carr on a bus. Not a metaphor, an actual CTA bus, the 147 heading north on Michigan Avenue, on a gray April morning after Hazel had been up until 4 and Vivian had missed her earlier bus and was running late for a meeting with a client who was paying her enough that she couldn't afford to lose the account. She boarded at the wrong stop, distracted and sleep-deprived, hauling a portfolio tube and a tote bag with a broken strap, tripped on the step, and the tube swung sideways and caught the man nearest the door square in the shoulder. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm exhausted, I didn't sleep, I'm so sorry. It's fine, he said, steadying her by the elbow, nothing presumptuous, just enough to keep her upright. You okay? She looked up. He was maybe 45, tall, dressed for a business morning in a coat that was quiet rather than expensive. He had the kind of face that had clearly spent a lot of time listening. I'm late, she said, which wasn't really an answer. You need a seat? He gestured to the one behind him, the one he'd apparently been standing so an elderly woman could take it. I'm fine, Vivian said. I'll stand. She stood. He stood. The bus lurched north. At the next stop, 2 people got off, and he shifted so she could take the window seat, without asking anything of her. She sat. He held the overhead rail. Long week, he asked. Long couple of months, she said. He nodded, like that was a complete sentence. He didn't ask her to explain. They rode 4 stops in silence. She nearly missed her transfer, and he caught the look on her face just in time. Michigan and Erie, if you're headed downtown. He was right. She thanked him, got off, walked to her meeting, and landed the account. That evening, she found herself thinking about the steadiness of his hand on her elbow, how it had been there, and then simply gone, without making anything of itself. She ran into him again 6 weeks later. Same bus, different morning. He recognized her before she recognized him, which she later teased him about relentlessly. You remembered me, she said. You hit me with a tube, he said. It was memorable. His name was Nathan Carr. Commercial real estate, not Donovan level finance, not a man who needed 3 lawyers managing his public image, but someone who'd built something real and understood the specific weight that took. He'd grown up in Indianapolis. He had a 9-year-old daughter from a previous relationship who lived primarily with her mother in Naperville, and who, Nathan said simply, was the best person he knew. That's a high bar, Vivian said. She clears it easily, he said. They got coffee, not officially a date, or at least not named as one, just coffee because the bus route ended near a place he knew and she had 45 minutes before her next call. They sat at a small table by the window, and she found herself talking in a way she hadn't in a long time. Not performing. Not managing. Just talking. She told him she was a single mother to infant twins. She watched him take it in without flinching. How old? He asked. 3 months. How are you doing? Not how are they, how was she? She looked at her coffee. I'm figuring it out, she said. Good days and harder ones. Today's a medium day. I've learned to be grateful for medium days. He nodded again, that same quality of listening she'd noticed on the bus. That's honest. I'm too tired for anything else, she said. He laughed. She laughed. 45 minutes turned into an hour and 20, and she was late for her call, and she didn't mind at all. They dated slowly, Vivian's word, and Nathan's preference too. She was protective of the girls in a way she never apologized for, and told him early on that he wouldn't meet Hazel and Iris until she was certain. He said that was exactly right, and meant it. He didn't push. He never created situations that forced her to choose. He showed up when she asked and disappeared when she needed space, and over those early months, without ever being told directly, he learned the particular rhythm of her life. He met her mother before he met the girls. Patrice, who had strong opinions and never hesitated to voice them, called Vivian afterward and said, "He asked me about myself. And he actually listened to the answers." "Is that your seal of approval?" Vivian asked. "It's a strong indicator," her mother said. He met Hazel and Iris on a Saturday in September. When they were 7 months old, Hazel had just figured out how to pull herself upright on the crib rail, and Iris had just cut her first tooth and was making her opinions on the matter known, loudly. He sat on the living room floor and let them come to him on their own time, which Iris did immediately and Hazel did eventually, and he held them with the particular care of someone who had held a baby before and understood exactly what that means. After he left that evening, Vivian stood in the kitchen for a long time, feeling something she didn't quite have a word for. Not falling, exactly. Something more like leaning forward, trust, with a little velocity behind it. The letter from Donovan's attorney arrived on a Wednesday, 14 months after the divorce was finalized. A custody petition. Donovan Reed wished to establish a formal custody arrangement for the minor children Hazel Collins Reed and Iris Collins Reed. He was prepared to seek primary shared custody. He'd retained Whitmore, Strand and Kelmer, one of the most prominent family law firms in Illinois. Vivian read it twice. Then she set it on the counter and walked into the nursery, where both girls were sleeping, Hazel on her stomach, arms flung wide, Iris curled tight into herself. 14 months old. 14 months of feedings and sleepless nights and ear infections and first words, and the particular joy of watching someone discover the world for the first time. He hadn't visited once. Hadn't called once. Hadn't sent so much as a card. And now he wanted custody. She called Nathan. He came straight over, sat at her kitchen table, read the letter, and looked up at her. "We're going to fight this," he said. "Not you. We." She stared at him. "You need a real family law attorney," he said. "Someone who specializes in contested custody against high-asset opposing parties." "I know someone. Let me make a call." "Nathan." "Viv." He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "You're not doing this alone." She had been alone for a very long time. She'd gotten good at it, good enough that some quiet part of her had come to believe this was simply how things would be from now on, that you learn to be good at what you have to survive, and she'd stopped letting herself want more than that. She looked down at his hand over hers. "Okay," she said. "Okay." The attorney Nathan knew was Gloria Trent, 22 years in family law, who had, in Nathan's words, won cases that shouldn't have been winnable. Close-cropped silver hair, a directness Vivian found immediately calming. In their first meeting, she laid it out plainly. He was absent for 14 months, Gloria said. No visits, no communication. He signed a settlement with no binding child support. Your NDA covers your public speech, it doesn't cover legal testimony. And he's now engaged to a woman 12 years his junior, whom he was seeing before the divorce was final. She tapped her pen against the file. He's not in a strong position. Then why is he doing this? Gloria looked at her. What changed, 14 months ago, that's different from today? Vivian thought about it. The architecture firm. The commission she just won, a community arts center in Lincoln Square, the biggest project of her career, featured 6 weeks earlier in Architectural Digest, alongside a photograph of her standing outside the finished building, her name in print. He saw I was doing well, she said. Men like Donovan Reed, Gloria said, can tolerate being left behind by a woman who fell apart. What they can't stand is being left behind by one who thrived. The custody proceedings dragged on for 4 months, and none of them were pleasant. Donovan's attorneys were skilled and aggressive. They filed documentation claiming Vivian was an unstable single mother without the financial resources to properly raise 2 children. They challenged her living arrangement. Without her knowledge, they submitted surveillance photos taken by a private investigator, pictures of her apartment building, of her coming and going, of Nathan's car parked outside. They're arguing an unknown male presence represents instability, Gloria told her. He's not unknown. He's been in their lives for 7 months. I know. We're going to make sure the court knows that too. Nathan gave a statement. Calm, specific dates, activities, the nature of his relationship with the girls, the fact that he'd honored a custody arrangement with his own daughter, without a single dispute, for 9 straight years. He didn't perform. He simply told the truth, and the truth was enough. Vivian's own testimony ran 3 hours. She walked through every month of the girls' lives, every pediatric appointment, every milestone, every 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. She'd gotten up and done what needed doing. She brought records. She brought a pediatrician's assessment. She brought letters from her mother, from Danny, from the daycare provider who'd known Hazel and Iris since they were 4 months old. She did not cry on the stand. She'd already cried enough. This wasn't that. The judge was the Honorable Patricia Ashmore, 16 years on the family court bench. She reviewed the full record, heard both sides, weighed the 14 months of silence against Donovan's petition, which his attorneys had framed as a renewed commitment to family. Judge Ashmore, as it turned out, was not especially moved by that framing. Her ruling awarded Vivian primary custody of Hazel and Iris, along with full educational and medical decision-making authority. Donovan was granted supervised visitation 2 Saturday afternoons a month, at a facility with a court-appointed monitor, pending a 6-month review. He was ordered to pay retroactive child support for the 14 months of absence, calculated at a figure that made his attorneys go very quiet, plus ongoing monthly support going forward. The NDA wasn't voided, but Judge Ashmore noted for the record that its scope covered personal commentary only, and did not prevent Vivian from speaking factually about custody proceedings that were, after all, public record. Outside the courthouse, on the steps, in the flat white cold of a Chicago January, Vivian stood with Gloria Trent, her mother, and Nathan, and looked up at the sky, and let herself feel it. Not triumph, exactly, something quieter. The specific relief of someone who has been holding something impossibly heavy for a very long time, finally being told she could put it down. Her mother hugged her first, then Gloria, then Nathan, who held her for a moment with his face against her hair and said nothing at all, which was exactly right. 6 months after the ruling, Vivian's firm, Caldwell Design Studio, formally registered the previous spring, now employing 4 people, won a commission for a mixed-use residential project in the West Loop. It was, her accountant told her, the kind of project that changes the whole trajectory of a practice. The Tribune ran a short piece, "Architect and single mother of twins wins major city commission." She read the headline and thought she'd have left off single mother. But she understood why they'd kept it, and let it go. Donovan's supervised visits went ahead on schedule. He showed up for about half of the allotted Saturdays. Vivian tracked this without bitterness. She tracked it because it was information that mattered for the girls, and that was the only lens she had any interest in using anymore. Hazel, fierce and already talking a mile a minute, showing early signs of her grandmother's opinions, didn't have strong feelings about a man she barely knew. Iris, more watchful, asked once where the man from the visit room had gone, and whether he was coming back. "He might," Vivian said. "We'll see." Iris considered this, then asked for more pasta. Vivian took that as a perfectly reasonable way to move forward. Nathan proposed on a Sunday morning in March, when the girls were nearly 2.5. He didn't make a production of it. No restaurant, no audience. He made breakfast. He was a better cook than she was, something she'd long since accepted, and she came downstairs in her bathrobe to find Hazel and Iris already fed and thoroughly covered in scrambled egg, and Nathan sitting at the table with a small box in his hand and the particular nervous expression she rarely saw on him. "I had a speech," he said. "What happened to it?" He glanced at the girls, doing something complicated with their toast. Hazel had eaten roughly half of hers. Vivian laughed, the real laugh, the full one, the one that had come back to her slowly over the past 2 years and now came easily. He opened the box. The ring was simple, not small, not showy, a solitaire with clean lines. He knew her taste, because he'd paid attention. "I know this is a lot," he said. "I know what you've been through, and I know you built everything you have without anyone's help, and I'm not trying to take over any of it. I just want to be in it, with you, and with them." He glanced at the girls again. "All 3 of you. For the whole thing." She looked at him across the table. She thought about the bus. The steadiness of his hand on her elbow. The way he'd sat on her living room floor and let 2 suspicious infants come to him at their own pace. "Yes," she said. It wasn't complicated. It was just true. They married that August, in a small backyard ceremony at her mother's house in Oak Park. 22 guests, light strung between the trees, the girls in white dresses with green sashes they objected to immediately and forgot about the second the cake appeared. Gloria Trent came. Danny came. Nathan's daughter, Lily, 9 now, sharp and funny, already forming what looked like a lifelong alliance with Hazel, stood beside him during the ceremony and handed him the ring when he fumbled for it in his pocket, which got a laugh from everyone. Vivian's mother cried the good kind of crying. Afterward, late, with the string lights still on and the last guests finishing their wine, and the girls carried inside and put to bed, Vivian stood at the edge of the yard with a glass of cold champagne, looking up through the oak leaves at whatever stars were visible above Chicago in August. She thought about the conference room, the gray-suited attorneys, the pen in her hand, the number in the settlement that was supposed to be enough. She thought about the bathroom floor, the cold tile, the way she'd let the wave come, then stood up and started making a list. She thought about a bus in April, a morning she'd nearly missed, a man who'd steadied her without making anything of it, who'd given up a window seat without being asked. You don't plan for the thing that saves you. You just have to still be moving when it arrives. She finished the champagne. She went inside. The girls were asleep in their room, Hazel sprawled, Iris curled, the way they'd always been, from the very beginning. She stood in the doorway and looked at them in the nightlight glow, at their faces, their particular breathing, the small perfect fact of them. And she felt what she felt every single time, something that had never needed a word, because it was bigger than any word she knew. She pulled the door half closed, and went to find her husband.